The Grand Colosseum of Vethrek Prime was the largest structure Daniel Carter had ever seen. It rose from the red desert like a mountain made of black stone and metal. Over 50,000 warriors from across the galaxy had gathered here for the Centennial Summit of Blades. Every major species sent their champions. Every empire displayed its strength. And somewhere in the middle of all this, one human stood alone. Daniel adjusted his dress uniform and watched the crowd from a quiet corner near the entrance. He was not here as a warrior. He was here as a diplomatic attaché, a representative of Earth's new membership in the Galactic Coalition. His job was simple: watch, listen, report back. Do not cause problems. The aliens around him were massive. The Dracorians stood 7 feet tall, with thick scales and claws that could tear through steel. The Valkyrie had 4 arms and skin like gray stone. The Morthians moved on 6 legs and carried weapons fused to their bodies. Every species here had evolved for war. They had natural armor, venom, strength that could crush bones with a simple grip. And then there was Daniel. 5'10", soft skin, no claws, no scales, no venom. A group of Valkyrie warriors walked past him. One of them stopped and looked down at Daniel with 4 yellow eyes. The alien made a sound that Daniel's translator rendered as laughter. "This is what Earth sends?" The Valkyrie said to his companions, "This small thing? I have killed insects larger than this." The others laughed. Daniel said nothing. He simply nodded politely and stepped aside to let them pass. This had been happening all day. Every species here looked at humans the same way. They saw weakness. They saw prey. Earth had only made contact with the galactic community 3 years ago. Humans were new, unknown, and completely unremarkable in the eyes of species that had conquered star systems. Daniel made his way to the main arena, where the opening ceremony would take place. Thousands of warriors filled the stone seats that rose in circles around the central platform. Banners of different empires hung from the walls. The air smelled of smoke and something metallic that Daniel could not identify. He found a seat in the section reserved for minor species and new members. There were a few other humans here. Ambassador Linda Morrison sat 2 rows ahead with her security detail. She caught Daniel's eye and gave him a small nod. He returned it and settled into his seat. The ceremony began with displays of combat. Champions from each major species demonstrated their skills on the central platform. A Dracorian warrior cut through training dummies with a blade that hummed with energy. A Morthian crushed a block of solid metal with its bare hands. A Sindari assassin moved so fast that Daniel could barely track its movements. The crowd roared with approval after each display. Warriors beat their chests and stamped their feet. The noise was so loud that Daniel felt it in his bones. Then came the introductions of the greatest champions. Names were called one by one. Warriors descended to the central platform to receive recognition. Kelthur of House Vorn, the announcer called. Apex warrior of the Dracorian Empire. Bearer of 312 confirmed kills in ritual combat. Undefeated in 40 years of challenge. The Colosseum fell silent for a moment, then erupted in the loudest cheers yet. Daniel watched as a massive Dracorian descended the stairs. Kelthur was larger than the others of his kind. His scales were dark green, almost black, and covered in scars that told stories of countless battles. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Kelthur reached the platform and raised one clawed hand. The crowd went silent instantly. He did not speak. He simply stood there, scanning the arena with eyes that glowed like molten gold. Daniel felt those eyes pass over him. For a moment, just a brief second, the apex warrior's gaze stopped. Daniel held still. He did not look away. He had learned long ago that predators respected those who did not flinch. The moment passed. Calthor turned away and left the platform. The ceremony continued for another 2 hours. More displays of strength. More introductions. More species laughing at the small human delegation in the corner. When it finally ended, Daniel stood to leave. He planned to return to the embassy ship and file his report. But before he could reach the exit, a Dracorian guard blocked his path. "Commander Carter," the guard said, "you will come with me." Daniel looked at the guard, then at the 2 others who had appeared behind him. His hand moved toward the sidearm hidden under his jacket, but he stopped himself. Starting a fight here would cause an incident that Earth could not afford. "May I ask why?" Daniel said. "Calthor of House War requests your presence," the guard said. "A private audience. You will come now." The guards did not wait for his answer. They turned and walked, clearly expecting him to follow. Daniel looked back toward Ambassador Morrison, but she was already surrounded by other diplomats and had not seen what happened. He followed the guards. They led him through corridors carved from the same black stone as the rest of the Colosseum. The halls were empty and silent. Their footsteps echoed off the walls. After several minutes of walking, they reached a heavy door marked with symbols that Daniel did not recognize. The guards stepped aside. One of them gestured for Daniel to enter. Daniel pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was large but simple. Stone walls. A few weapons mounted on display. A table with 2 chairs. And standing at the far end, looking out a window at the red desert below, was Calthor. The apex warrior did not turn around. "Close the door," he said. Daniel closed it. He stood still and waited. Calthor finally turned. Those golden eyes studied Daniel with an intensity that made the air feel heavy. "You did not look away," Calthor said. "In the arena. When I looked at you, you did not look away." "No," Daniel said. "I did not." Calthor was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that Daniel did not expect. He smiled. "Good," the apex warrior said. "Sit. We have much to discuss." Daniel sat in the chair across from Calthor. The table between them was made of dark wood, polished smooth by years of use. A single lamp provided light. The rest of the room remained in shadow. Calthor lowered himself into the other chair. Even sitting, he towered over Daniel. His scales caught the light and shimmered like armor forged from night itself. "You are confused," Calthor said. "You wonder why I brought you here." "The thought crossed my mind," Daniel admitted. "The others see you as weak," Calthor said. "Small body, no claws, no natural weapons. They look at humans and see nothing worth respecting." Daniel nodded slowly. "I have noticed. They are fools." Calthor leaned forward. "I am not." The apex warrior reached under the table and pulled out a data tablet. He placed it between them and activated it. The holographic display flickered to life, showing images that Daniel recognized immediately. Earth, human cities, human soldiers. "I have studied your species," Calthor said. "For 2 years, I have read everything I could find about humans. Your history, your wars, your evolution." Daniel said nothing. He watched as the images changed. Battlefields, soldiers in trenches, cities reduced to rubble and rebuilt again. "Your world is classified as a Class 12 death world," Calthor continued. "Do you know what that means?" "I have heard the term. Most species evolve on worlds rated Class 4 or below. Safe worlds, stable climates, few predators." Calthor's golden eyes narrowed. "Class 12 means your planet actively tries to kill everything on it. Extreme temperatures, natural disasters, predators everywhere, diseases that mutate faster than medicine can cure them. And yet, humans did not just survive. You thrived. You became the dominant species. The holographic display showed a map of Earth. Red zones covered most of the surface. 70% of your planet is covered in a substance that will kill you if you breathe it, Calther said. Your star burns your skin. Your weather systems can flatten cities. And your ancestors looked at all of this and said, "We will make this our home." Daniel remained silent. He had never thought about Earth that way. To him, it was just home. But that is not what interests me most, Calther said. He changed the display again. Now it showed human soldiers in combat gear. Your wars interest me. Images flashed across the screen. Beaches covered in bodies. Mountains of snow stained red. Forests stripped bare by artillery. You call this one the Great War, Calther said. 17 million dead. 4 years of fighting in conditions that would break any species I know. Soldiers standing in mud and water for weeks. Disease, poison gas. Weapons that tore bodies apart. And yet your soldiers kept fighting. They did not surrender. They did not break. He changed the image again. A frozen city. Stalingrad. Your soldiers fought building by building, room by room, in cold that froze weapons solid. Over 1 million dead in a single battle. 1 million. Calther shook his head slowly. No species in the galactic record has fought battles like this. No species has endured such losses and kept going. Daniel looked at the images. He knew these stories. Every soldier knew them. They were legends passed down through generations. Reminders of what humans could endure when pushed to the edge. I brought you here because I recognize something in you, Calther said. The way you carry yourself. The weight in your eyes. You have seen combat. Real combat. Not sport. Not ritual. War. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. 12 years in special operations, he said. 6 deployments to active conflict zones. Tell me. It was not a question. It was a request from one warrior to another. Daniel hesitated. He did not talk about his service. Not to diplomats. Not to politicians. Not to anyone who had not been there. But something in Calther's eyes told him that this alien understood in a way that few ever could. My first deployment, I lost 3 men in an ambush, Daniel said. His voice was flat, controlled. We were pinned down for 6 hours. No air support. No backup. I carried my sergeant 2 miles through hostile territory with a bullet in my leg. Calther listened without interruption. My 4th deployment, our convoy hit an explosive. I pulled 4 soldiers out of a burning vehicle. 2 of them died in my arms before medical arrived. Daniel paused. My 6th deployment, I led a rescue operation to extract hostages from an enemy compound. We got them out. All 12. But I lost my best friend in the process. Took a blade meant for me. The room was silent except for the hum of the holographic display. Calther reached across the table and gripped Daniel's forearm. The Dracorian's claws could have torn through flesh and bone, but his touch was careful, almost gentle. Among my people, there is a bond called blood brotherhood, Calther said. It is the highest honor a Dracorian can bestow. It is reserved for those who have proven themselves through suffering and survival. Those who carry the weight of battle and do not break. Daniel met the Apex Warrior's eyes. I have never offered this bond to an outsider, Calther continued. In 400 years of Dracorian history, it has never been given to someone not of our blood. He released Daniel's arm and stood. Tomorrow, at the assembly, I will declare you my blood brother before the entire summit. Every warrior from every species will witness it. Daniel stood as well. They will not accept it. They will laugh. Yes, Calther said. They will. The Apex Warrior smiled again. And this time, there was something dangerous in it. Let them. The main amphitheater was even more crowded than the day before. Every seat was filled. Warriors stood in the aisles and along the walls. The air buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages. Daniel stood near the human delegation, his dress uniform pressed and clean. Ambassador Morrison had asked him 3 times where he had been the previous night. He had told her the truth. She had not believed him. The blood brotherhood with the apex warrior? She had said, "Daniel, that is either the best thing that has ever happened to human diplomacy, or the worst. I have not decided which." Now she sat in her seat with her hands folded, watching the central platform with careful eyes. The morning session began with announcements and minor business. Trade agreements, border disputes, the usual matters that fill diplomatic gatherings. Daniel barely listened. His mind was focused on what was coming. An hour into the session, Calther rose from his seat. The amphitheater fell silent. When the apex warrior stood, everyone paid attention. He walked down the stairs toward the central platform with slow, deliberate steps. Other Dracorians moved aside to let him pass. Even the representatives from rival empires watched with respect. Calther reached the platform and stood at its center. He raised one hand, and the last whispers died away. "I have a declaration to make," he said. His voice carried through the amphitheater without effort. A declaration that has not been made in 400 years of Dracorian history. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. 400 years was a long time, even by the standards of species that lived for centuries. "I claim the right of blood brotherhood," Calther continued. "I invoke the ancient bond, witnessed by all who stand here today." More murmurs. Representatives leaned toward each other and whispered. Blood brotherhood was a sacred tradition. To witness, it was an honor. "I call forward the one I have chosen," Calther said. His golden eyes swept across the amphitheater until they found Daniel. "Commander Daniel Carter of Earth, step forward." The murmurs stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then someone laughed. It started with a single Velkari in the upper seats. A loud, barking sound that echoed off the stone walls. Others joined in. Morthians made clicking sounds that their translators rendered as amusement. Sindari hissed with what could only be mockery. Daniel walked toward the platform. Every step felt like a mile. He could feel thousands of eyes on him, and none of them held respect. The laughter grew louder as he descended the stairs. A Valkyrie warlord named Thresk stood in his seat. He was enormous, even for his species, with 4 arms as thick as tree trunks and skin like cracked stone. "Is this a joke?" Thresk bellowed. "The apex warrior offers blood brotherhood to a human? To this soft little creature?" More laughter. Warriors stomped their feet in amusement. Daniel reached the platform and stood beside Calther. He kept his expression neutral, his posture straight. He had faced worse than laughter. Calther did not acknowledge the mockery. He drew a ceremonial blade from his belt, a curved weapon with ancient symbols carved into its surface. Without hesitation, he cut a line across his own palm. Dark blood welled up from the wound. "By my blood, I recognize this warrior," Calther said. The traditional words. Words that had been spoken for thousands of years. "By my honor, I claim him as brother. His enemies are my enemies. His battles are my battles. Until death and beyond." He held out the blade to Daniel. Daniel took it. The handle was warm from Calther's grip. He drew the blade across his own palm without flinching. Red human blood dripped onto the platform. Calther clasped Daniel's hand. Their blood mixed together. "By your blood, you accept this bond?" Calther asked. "I accept," Daniel said. "Then before all witnesses, you are my brother. Now and forever." The laughter had not stopped. If anything, it had grown louder. Thresk was practically howling with amusement. Other Valkyrie had joined him. "This is an insult," Tres shouted. "An insult to every warrior here. The great Calther has lost his mind. He offers sacred brotherhood to a species that cannot even grow proper claws." Calther finally turned to face the Valkyrie warlord. His expression had not changed, but something shifted in his eyes. Something cold. "You laugh," Calther said. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. "You laugh because you do not understand." The amphitheater grew quieter, but scattered chuckles still echoed from the walls. "You look at humans and see weakness," Calther continued. "Small bodies, soft skin, no natural weapons. You see prey." He released Daniel's hand and walked to the edge of the platform. "You are all fools." Complete silence now. No one laughed at the apex warrior when he spoke in that tone. Calther activated a holographic display that rose from the platform. An image of a blue and green planet appeared. "Earth," he said. "The human homeworld. Galactic classification. Class 12 Death World." The silence deepened. Daniel saw expressions change throughout the amphitheater. Species who had been laughing moments ago now stared at the display with something new in their eyes. "Class 12, Calther repeated. "The second highest danger classification in the galactic database. Only 13 planets in known space have ever received this rating. And humans did not just survive there. They became the dominant species." He changed the display to show images of Earth, oceans, deserts, frozen wastelands, jungles filled with predators. Their planet is covered in poisoned water that they cannot breathe. Their star burns their skin. Their weather systems can destroy cities in hours. Every environment on their world contains creatures that can kill them. Calther turned back to face the crowd. "And they conquered all of it." Thresk was no longer laughing, but his expression remained defiant. "Classifications mean nothing," he said. "Show me proof of this so-called strength. Show me why a human deserves to stand beside the apex warrior." Calther smiled. It was not a friendly expression. "I thought you might say that." Calther changed the holographic display. New images appeared. Humans in combat. Humans hunting. Humans surviving conditions that should have killed them. "Let me tell you about humans," he said to the silent amphitheater. "Let me tell you what the data files do not emphasize enough." He gestured to an image of early humans chasing an animal across a grassland. Humans are persistent predators. They do not have claws or fangs or venom. So instead, they evolved a different method of hunting. They chase their prey. Not in a sprint, but in a marathon. They follow their target for hours, sometimes days, never stopping, never resting. The prey runs faster at first, but eventually it collapses from exhaustion. And the human is still coming. Always coming. They do not stop. The image changed to show a human running through heat that made the air shimmer. Their bodies can regulate temperature through sweating, allowing them to operate in heat that would kill most species. They can run for hundreds of miles without permanent damage to their bodies. Their endurance has no equal in the galactic record. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Daniel watched as warriors exchanged glances. The amusement was gone now, replaced by something else. "But that is not all," Calther continued. He showed images of wounded humans. A soldier with a hole in his chest, still firing his weapon. A pilot landing an aircraft with half her body burned. A fighter continuing to battle with a blade stuck in his shoulder. Humans do not stop when injured. They have documented cases of individuals fighting for hours with wounds that should have killed them instantly. Their bodies produce chemicals that block pain and increase strength when threatened. They call it adrenaline. It allows them to ignore damage that would incapacitate any species here. The display showed medical records, survival rates, recovery times. They heal from injuries that would be fatal to us. Broken bones mend. Torn flesh grows back. They have survived falls, drownings, burnings, and attacks from their planet's predators. And when they could not heal naturally, they learn to cut open their own bodies and repair the damage themselves. They call it surgery. Thresk had sat back down. His forearms were crossed, but his defiance had weakened. Others in the crowd leaned forward, watching the display with growing unease. "Now let me tell you about their wars," Kelther said. His voice grew heavier. "Because this is what convinced me that humans are not to be underestimated." The display showed battlefields, trenches filled with mud and bodies, cities reduced to rubble, soldiers marching through snow that reached their waists. In one conflict, they call the Great War, 17 million humans died. 17 million. The fighting lasted 4 years. Soldiers lived in holes in the ground, surrounded by disease and death. Poison gas melted their lungs. Explosives tore them apart. And they did not surrender. They kept fighting until one side had nothing left to give. He changed the image to show a frozen city. 20 years later, they fought again. This conflict killed 70 million. 70 million humans dead in 6 years. Entire cities were burned to ash. And still they fought. In one battle alone, over 1 million soldiers died fighting over a single city in frozen wasteland. The survivors ate rats and leather to stay alive. And they did not break. The amphitheater was completely silent now. No species in galactic history has fought wars like this, Kelther said. No species has suffered such losses and continued. When humans fight, they do not stop until victory or extinction. There is no middle ground. There is no surrender. He turned off the display and faced the crowd directly. "This is why I chose a human as my blood brother. Not because of claws or scales or natural weapons. Because humans have something more valuable. They have the will to endure anything. To survive anything. To keep fighting when all logic says they should stop." Thresk rose again from his seat. His expression had changed. The mockery was gone, but stubbornness remained. "Words and images prove nothing," the Volcari warlord said. "Data can be manipulated. Records can be falsified. If this human is truly worthy of standing beside the apex warrior, let him prove it." "How would you have him prove it?" Kelther asked. "Combat." Thresk bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. "Single combat against me. Under Summit law, I challenge the validity of this blood bond. Let the human defend it with his own strength." The amphitheater erupted in noise. Warriors shouted opinions from every direction. Some called for the challenge to be accepted. Others said it was unfair, a death sentence disguised as honor. Daniel looked at Thresk. The Valkyrie was twice his size. 4 arms, each one capable of crushing bone. Claws that dripped with natural venom. Gray skin as tough as armor. Ambassador Morrison was on her feet, trying to push through the crowd toward the platform. Her face was pale. "Daniel, you cannot accept this," she called out. "It is suicide. We will find another way." Daniel held up one hand, signaling her to stop. She froze, confusion and fear crossing her face. He turned to face Thresk. "I accept your challenge," Daniel said. His voice was calm and steady. "Single combat. No weapons, but what we were born with." Thresk laughed again, but this time there was something nervous behind it. "You choose to fight me with bare hands?" The Valkyrie said. "Against my claws, my venom? You are either brave or insane." "Perhaps both," Daniel said. Kelther placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You do not have to do this," the Apex Warrior said quietly. "The bond is made. What they think does not matter." Daniel met his blood brother's eyes. "Yes, it does. If I walk away now, every species here will remember. They will say humans hide behind others. that we are not worthy of standing beside warriors. He shook his head. That is not the reputation Earth needs. Calther studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Then fight well, brother. The arena floor was cleared. Thousands of witnesses pressed against the barriers, eager to watch what most believed would be a quick execution. Daniel removed his jacket and stood in the center of the arena. Across from him, Thresk cracked his massive knuckles and rolled his shoulders. I will try to make this quick, the Valkyrie said. Out of respect for your courage, if nothing else. Daniel said nothing. He simply raised his hands and waited. The signal horn sounded. The fight began. Thresk charged like a landslide. 4 arms reached for Daniel, each one capable of tearing him in half. The Valkyrie was fast for his size, faster than any creature that large should be. Daniel was not there when the arms closed. He moved to the side at the last moment, letting Thresk's momentum carry him past. The Valkyrie stumbled, surprised by empty air where his target should have been. The crowd made sounds of confusion. They had expected the fight to end in seconds. Thresk turned and attacked again. This time he was more careful, spreading his 4 arms wide to cut off escape routes. His claws gleamed with venom that could paralyze in seconds. Daniel ducked under the first swing. He twisted away from the second. The third caught his shoulder and tore through fabric, drawing a thin line of blood. But Daniel kept moving, kept circling, refusing to stand still long enough to be grabbed. Hold still, little creature, Thresk growled. Accept your death with dignity. Daniel did not answer. He was conserving his breath, watching his opponent's movements, looking for patterns. Every fighter had patterns. Every fighter had weaknesses. Thresk attacked again and again. Each time, Daniel avoided the killing blows. He took glancing hits. Cuts opened on his arms and chest. Blood stained his white shirt red. But he did not go down. He did not stop moving. The crowd grew quiet. This was not how the fight was supposed to go. Minutes passed. Thresk was breathing harder now. His attacks came slower, with less precision. He was not used to prey that survived this long. His species fought with overwhelming force, ending battles quickly. Extended combat was not their strength. Daniel saw the opening he had been waiting for. Thresk overextended on a swing, putting too much weight forward. Daniel stepped inside his reach, too close for the long arms to be effective. He drove his elbow into the nerve cluster under Thresk's lower left arm. The limb went limp. The Valkyrie roared in surprise and pain. He swung with his other arms, but Daniel was already moving, staying inside his guard. A punch to the throat made Thresk gag. A kick to the knee joint made him stumble. For the first time, the Valkyrie warlord looked uncertain. How are you still standing? Thresk demanded. I have cut you a dozen times. My venom should have paralyzed you by now. Your venom is designed for your prey, Daniel said. His voice was steady despite the blood loss. Human biochemistry is different. It takes more than scratches to bring us down. He attacked before Thresk could respond. Combinations of strikes that targeted joints, pressure points, and vulnerable spots that armor could not protect. Each blow was precise, calculated, the result of years of training against opponents who were bigger, stronger, and more numerous. Thresk tried to grab him, but his movements were clumsy now. Fatigue and confusion made him slow. Daniel avoided his arms and continued his assault. The crowd watched in stunned silence. A human was beating a Valkyrie warlord. A creature with no claws, no natural weapons, no armor was winning against one of the most feared warriors in the summit. But Thresk was not finished. With a desperate roar, he lunged forward and caught Daniel's arm in his grip. Claws sank deep into flesh. Venom pumped directly into the wound. Daniel did not scream. His face tightened with pain, but he did not make a sound. "Now you die," Thresk said, triumph in his voice. "Not yet," Daniel replied. He used Thresk's grip against him. While the Valkyrie held his arm, Daniel stepped forward and wrapped his free arm around Thresk's throat. He hooked his legs around the massive body and squeezed. The chokehold was perfect. Years of training had made it instinct. Thresk thrashed and clawed, tearing more wounds into Daniel's body, but the human did not let go. He squeezed tighter, cutting off blood flow to the Valkyrie's brain. Thresk's struggles grew weaker. His forearms dropped to his sides. His eyes began to close. Seconds stretched into eternity. The amphitheater held its breath, and then Thresk went limp. Daniel held on for 3 more seconds to be sure. Then he released his grip and stepped back. The Valkyrie warlord collapsed onto the arena floor, unconscious but alive. Daniel stood over him, covered in his own blood, swaying slightly but still on his feet. Complete silence filled the Colosseum. 50,000 warriors stared at the impossible scene before them. Daniel looked up at the crowd. His vision was blurring from blood loss and the venom working through his system. He had minutes before his body gave out. But he remained standing. Kelthur descended from the stands. He walked across the arena floor and stood beside Daniel, placing one clawed hand on his shoulder. "Do you yield?" Kelthur asked, looking down at the unconscious Thresk. The question was ritual, meant for the witnesses. "He cannot answer," Daniel said. "I will answer for him. The fight is over. I claim no blood debt. He may live." Gasps rippled through the crowd. In combat culture, the victor always had the right to kill. Mercy from a winning position was almost unheard of. Kelthur turned to face the assembly. "You have witnessed human strength," he called out. "Not strength of body, strength of will, strength of endurance. The strength to show mercy when killing would be justified." He raised Daniel's arm into the air. "This is my blood brother. This is a human. And if any of you still wish to laugh, I invite you to step into this arena and test your mockery against his hands." No one moved. No one spoke. The silence stretched on until it became something else. Something that felt almost like respect. Daniel's vision darkened. The venom and blood loss were finally taking their toll. He felt himself falling. Kelthur caught him before he hit the ground. 3 days later, Daniel woke in a medical bay on the embassy ship. Kelthur sat beside his bed, reading from a data tablet. "You nearly died," the apex warrior said without looking up. The doctor said it was close. "How close?" "Your heart stopped twice." Kelthur finally looked at him. "Both times, you came back." The doctors were very confused by this. Daniel managed a weak smile. "Humans are stubborn." "Yes, I have noticed." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Through the window, Daniel could see ships departing from Vethrak Prime. The summit was ending. What happens now? Daniel asked. "Now, everything changes." Kelthur set down his tablet. 17 species have requested formal diplomatic meetings with Earth. The Valkyrie have offered a trade alliance. Even the Sindari have expressed interest in humanity, and they barely acknowledge anyone exists. Because I beat one warlord in a fight? Because you showed them what humans are. Kelthur leaned forward. Not your weapons or your technology. You showed them your spirit. Your refusal to surrender. Your mercy from victory. These things matter more than claws or scales. Daniel looked out the window at the stars. "I just did not want to die in front of 50,000 witnesses," he said. Seemed embarrassing. Kelthur laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound that shook the walls. "This is also very human," he said. "To face death and make jokes about it." He stood and gripped Daniel's forearm in the warrior's clasp. "Rest now, brother. When you are healed, there is much work to do." Earth has finally been noticed, and I suspect the galaxy will never be the same. Daniel returned the clasp. "Thank you," he said, "for seeing what others could not." "I saw what was there," Calther replied. "The others simply were not looking." He turned and walked toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. Thresk is requested to speak with you when you recover. He says he wishes to understand how a creature with no claws defeated him, and if I refuse?" Calther smiled. "Then I suspect he will ask again. And again. Valkyrie are also stubborn, in their way." He opened the door, but not as stubborn as humans. Nothing is as stubborn as humans. The door closed behind him. Daniel lay back against his pillow and stared at the ceiling. His body ached. The wounds would take weeks to fully heal. But despite everything, he found himself smiling. Somewhere out there, a galaxy that had laughed at humanity was learning to take them seriously. It was a good start.